The rain fell in relentless sheets over the sprawling estate in the hills of Bel Air, Los Angeles, its silver threads weaving a curtain of sorrow around Giana Salvador. The grand mansion with its marble columns and manicured gardens stood as a monument to opulence, yet within its walls, a storm far fiercer than the one outside was tearing her world apart. Giana, a young African-American woman whose curves spoke of resilience rather than shame, stood in the foyer, her heart pounding, as her mother Wilma unleashed a torrent of venomous words. "You're a burden, Giana." Wilma spat, her voice sharp as a blade slicing through the air cruelly. "A mistake, a blight on this family. Get out." Her eyes, cold and unyielding, bore into Giana, who clutched a worn leather satchel to her chest, her only shield against the onslaught. The words stung more than the rain soaking her clothes, each syllable a reminder of the rejection she had endured for years. Giana's deep brown eyes, shimmering with unshed tears, searched her mother's face for a flicker of love, but found only disdain. Naya, Giana's older sister, stood by Wilma's side, her lips curled into a mocking sneer. "You heard her, Giana," she taunted, tossing her sleek hair with a practiced flick. "You're nothing but dead weight, a disgrace. Look at you, too big, loud, too everything." Her laughter echoed through the cavernous hall, joined by the faint snickers of the household staff, who lingered in the shadows, their loyalty to Wilma unwavering. Giana's breath hitched her chest, tightening, as if the walls themselves were closing in. She was no stranger to their cruelty. Years of barbs about her weight, her skin, her very existence had hardened her spirit. But this was different. This was exile. "Mama, please," she whispered, her voice trembling like a fragile melody. "I'm your daughter too." "Why am I so different from Naya and Mona?" Wilma's laughter was a jagged thing cutting through the air. "My daughter, you're a mistake I made years ago, a fleeting moment with a man I'd rather forget. You're not like Naya or Mona. You're a shadow, Giana, a regret." She gestured toward the door, where the rain pounded against the stained glass panels. "Go. We don't need you here." The words landed like a physical blow, and Giana staggered back, her hand reaching for the banister to steady herself. The grand staircase loomed behind her, a silent witness to her unraveling. She glanced at the two loyal figures who had always been her refuge. Elena, the kind-eyed housekeeper who had bandaged her childhood scrapes, and Roxanne, the soft-spoken maid who had slipped her extra cookies when Wilma wasn't looking. Even Fred, the family driver, who had taught her to ride a bike, stood nearby, his face etched with quiet sorrow. "I'm leaving," Giana said, her voice breaking like fragile glass. She turned to Elena and Roxanne, her eyes pleading. "Will you come with me?" Without hesitation, Elena stepped forward, her weathered hands gripping Giana's. "We're with you, child," she said, her voice a warm hearth in the cold storm. Roxanne nodded, her eyes fierce with loyalty. Fred, too, gave a resolute nod, his keys jingling softly in his pocket. As Giana stepped into the rain, her belongings stuffed into a single bag, she felt the weight of her family's rejection settle into her bones. The mansion's lights faded behind her, swallowed by the storm, but a spark of defiance flickered in her chest. She clutched her satchel tighter, her fingers brushing against a faded photograph tucked inside a young Giana, smiling beside a pale-skinned boy with kind eyes. Who was he? The memory was a whisper too faint to grasp, but it stirred something deep within her, a promise of hope amidst the wreckage. The drive to a small apartment in downtown Los Angeles was silent, the city's neon lights blurring through the rain-streaked windows. Elena sat beside Giana, her hand a steady anchor on her shoulder. "You're stronger than they know," she murmured, her voice a soothing balm. "This isn't the end, Giana. It's the beginning." Giana nodded, though her heart ached with the weight of betrayal. She thought of her father Peter, a man she hadn't seen in years. His face a distant memory, softened by time. He had left her this apartment a secret haven. Wilma didn't know about a final gift before he vanished from her life. Why had he gone? The question gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the road ahead. She would survive this. She had to. In the following days, Giana settled into the modest apartment, its bare walls brimming with possibility. The city pulsed outside a symphony of ambition and dreams, and Giana felt its rhythm calling to her. She spent hours poring over old journals, her thoughts tangled with pain and resolve. Elena and Roxanne became her family, their laughter filling the small space with warmth. Fred, ever practical, fixed leaky faucets and brought takeout from the best taco trucks in town. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline casting a golden glow over the city, Giana sat at her desk, her laptop glowing softly. An email notification chimed, and her breath caught at the sender's name, Diego Lorenzo. The subject line read, "A promise kept." Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard, her heart racing with curiosity and suspicion. Who was Diego? And why did his name stir a faint echo in her memory? She opened the email, and the words seemed to leap off the screen. Dear Giana, I've been searching for you. I know this may seem sudden, but I want to offer you more than a partnership. I want to offer you a future. Will you meet me? The message was signed with a flourish, and attached was a photo of a man with piercing blue eyes and a warm smile standing against the backdrop of a vineyard. Something about those eyes felt familiar, like a melody she'd forgotten, but could still hum. Giana's heart fluttered a delicate dance of hope and fear. She had been burned before, her trust shattered by those she loved most. Yet there was something in Diego's words, a sincerity that pierced her defenses. She turned to Elena, who was knitting in the corner, her eyes wise and knowing. What do you think, Yaya? Giana asked, using the affectionate term she'd given Elena as a child. Elena set down her needles, her gaze soft but firm. Sometimes, child, the universe sends us a lifeline when we least expect it. This Diego. He's reaching out to you. Maybe it's time you reached back. Her words were a gentle nudge, a reminder that Giana deserved more than the shadows of her past. As night fell over Los Angeles, Giana stared at the email, her fingers hovering over the reply button. The city hummed outside a chorus of possibility, and she felt a spark ignite within her, a vision of a life rebuilt, not in the ashes of her pain, but in the glow of her own strength. She typed a single word, yes. With that, she took the first step into an unknown future, her heart open to the promise of redemption. The fog rolled gently over San Francisco, cloaking the city in a silver veil that mirrored the quiet turmoil in Giana Salvador's heart. Her new home, a cozy loft in the Mission District, was a far cry from the opulent Bel Air mansion she'd been cast out of, but its vibrant murals and bustling streets pulsed with a life that stirred her soul. Giana, her dark skin glowing under the soft morning light, stood at the window, her reflection a testament to her resilience. The wounds of her mother's rejection still ached, but they were no longer raw. They were fuel igniting a fire within her to reclaim her worth. The email from Diego Lorenzo had been a beacon in her darkness, its words lingering like a half-remembered dream. A promise kept. He had written, and though Giana couldn't place him, his sincerity had pierced her guarded heart. She had agreed to meet him, not out of blind trust, but out of a desperate need to believe in something beyond the pain of her past. As she sipped coffee, the aroma rich and grounding, she felt a flutter of anticipation. Who was this man, and why did he seem to know her so well? Her steadfast confidant, Elena, bustled about the kitchen, humming a soulful tune. "You're glowing today, child." she said, her eyes twinkling with maternal pride. That email's got you thinking, hasn't it? Giana smiled, a rare softness breaking through her guarded demeanor. It's crazy, Yaya. I don't know him, but there's something about his words. Like he sees me, not the me they all mocked, but the real me. Roxanne, arranging flowers in a vase, chimed in, her voice gentle but firm. You're more than what they said, Giana. You're a diamond, rough but radiant. If this Diego sees that, maybe he's worth a chance. Their words wrapped around Giana like a warm blanket, easing the chill of her doubts. She nodded, her resolve strengthening. She would meet Diego, but first, she would rebuild herself, not for him, but for the woman she was destined to become. The days in San Francisco unfolded like pages in a new chapter. Giana enrolled in a prestigious wine business program in Napa Valley, drawn to the region's rolling vineyards and winemaking artistry. She spent mornings in lecture halls, absorbing knowledge about viticulture, and afternoons wandering the vineyards, her fingers brushing against grapevines heavy with promise. The work was grueling, but it awakened a passion she hadn't known she possessed. She began to see herself not as a victim, but as a creator, capable of crafting something beautiful from the earth's bounty. Her transformation extended beyond the classroom. Giana joined a gym not to chase society's ideals, but to reclaim her body. Each drop of sweat was a release. Each pound shed a victory over the voices that had called her too much. Her curves softened, but her spirit grew fiercer, her dark eyes blazing with determination. She traded her old, shapeless clothes for tailored dresses that hugged her form, their vibrant colors a celebration of her heritage and strength. One evening, as the sun painted the Golden Gate Bridge in hues of amber, Giana received another email from Diego. I'm in New York, but I'll be in San Francisco soon, he wrote. I've secured a vineyard for you in Napa, a place to start your dreams. Trust me, Giana, you're meant for greatness. Attached was a photo of a sprawling estate, its rows of vines stretching toward the horizon. Her breath caught not just at the gesture, but at the mystery of his faith in her. How did he know her so well? And why was he investing in her future? The vineyard was a turning point. Giana named it WineVerse, symbolizing her ambition to create a legacy that would outshine her family's empire in Los Angeles. With Diego's financial backing, mysterious funds that appeared in her account without explanation, she hired a team of experts, including disgruntled former employees of her family's business. She learned of their discontent. Wilma's greed, Naya's arrogance, and Mona's negligence had driven away loyal staff. Giana offered them a new home where their talents would be valued. Her charisma and vision won their loyalty, and WineVerse began to take shape. Yet beneath her burgeoning confidence, a shadow lingered. A late-night discovery in her apartment deepened Diego's mystery. Tucked in an old journal, Giana found a letter, its edges yellowed with age. To my Taba. It read the nickname, sparking a memory of a boy who had once shared his lunch with her at a Chicago schoolyard. I'll always protect you, D. Her heart raced. Was Diego that boy? The one who had stood up to her bullies, only to vanish without a trace? The letter hinted at a promise, but also a pain. She remembered his abrupt departure, leaving her alone to face her tormentors. She confided in Elena, who listened with a knowing smile. Some people come back when the time is right, she said, her voice a soothing melody. This Diego, he's not just offering you a vineyard. He's offering you a piece of your past, a chance to heal. Giana clutched the letter, her fingers tracing the faded ink. She wanted to believe in Diego, but trust was fragile, easily broken by the weight of her past. As WineVerse grew, so did Giana's resolve. She begins to uncover secrets about her family's business. Wilma has been siphoning funds meant for Giana money. Her father, Peter, had set aside before his disappearance. The betrayal fueled her ambition, but also her desire for justice. She wasn't just building a company, but forging a weapon she would wield against those who had cast her out. Yet even as she plotted, Diego's emails became a lifeline, each one a reminder that she wasn't alone. "You're stronger than you know," he wrote. "I believe in you, Giana. Always have." Their first virtual meeting came on a crisp autumn evening, the screen casting a soft glow in Giana's loft. Diego's face appeared, his blue eyes striking even through the pixelated connection. His voice was warm like a fire on a winter night, and his smile held a quiet intensity. "I've waited a long time to see you again," he said, his words carrying a weight that made her heart skip. Giana wanted to ask about the letter about the boy called D, but something held her back. Perhaps fear, or the hope that he would reveal himself in time. Instead, she focused on WineVerse, sharing her plans to rival her family's empire. Diego listened, his gaze never wavering, and offered insights that revealed his own expertise in business. "You're not just competing, Giana," he said. "You're redefining what success means. You're rewriting your story." His words ignited a vision of a future where she stood tall, not as a victim, but a queen. As winter approached, Giana prepared for her first significant move. An invitation arrived for a gala in Beverly Hills, hosted by a rival wine conglomerate, her family's company. She knew Wilma, Naya, and Mona would be there, basking in their perceived triumph. Giana saw her chance, not just to confront them, but to unveil the woman she had become. She chose a crimson gown, its fabric flowing like liquid fire, a bold declaration of her newfound strength. Elena adjusted the dress, her eyes misty with pride. "You're a vision child," she said. "Go show them what you're made of." The night of the gala. Giana stood at the edge of the ballroom, her heart a drumbeat of anticipation. The chandeliers glittered above, casting light on the elite of Los Angeles, but her eyes sought only her family. Resplendent in a designer gown, Wilma held court with a forced smile. Naya and Mona, radiant but cruel, whispered to their admirers. Giana took a deep breath, her fingers brushing the locket she wore, a gift from Elena, containing a photo of her younger self, a reminder of the girl who had survived. As she stepped into the light, heads turned, whispers rippling through the crowd. Giana Salvador was no longer the outcast. She was a force, her presence commanding attention. Naya's eyes widened, her mockery faltering. Wilma's smile froze, and there was a crack in her facade. Giana met their gazes, her own steady and unyielding. She wasn't here to plead or cower. She was here to begin her reckoning. And somewhere across the miles, Diego watched through a live stream, his blue eyes fixed on the woman he had never stopped believing in. The promise he had made as a boy in a Chicago schoolyard was alive, and Giana, though she didn't yet know it, was on the cusp of discovering just how deep that promise ran. The sun rose over Napa Valley, its golden rays kissing the rolling hills where grapevines stretched like the veins of the earth, pulsing with life and promise. Giana Salvador stood at the edge of her newly acquired vineyard, WineVerse, her silhouette framed against the dawn. Her deep brown skin glowed under the morning light, a testament to the fire within her, a fire that had been kindled in the ashes of her exile from Los Angeles and was now blazing with purpose. The city by the bay had become her sanctuary, and this vineyard, a gift from the enigmatic Diego Lorenzo, was her canvas, where she would paint a legacy to rival the empire that had cast her out. Once a fragile vessel battered by her mother Wilma's cruelty, Giana's heart beat with a rhythm of defiance and hope. She had left behind the girl who cowered under insults, the one called too much by her sister Naya, and a mistake by her mother. In her place stood a woman reborn, her curves softened by discipline, her spirit sharpened by ambition. The faded photograph of a young Giana and a pale-skinned boy, possibly Diego, still haunted her, a whisper of a past she couldn't fully grasp. But she pushed the mystery aside, focusing on the present, where every decision was a step toward reclaiming her worth. Her days in San Francisco had been a whirlwind of transformation. Enrolled in a prestigious wine business program at Napa Valley College, Giana immersed herself in the art and science of viticulture. She wandered through lecture halls, her notebook filled with notes on soil chemistry and fermentation. But it was in the vineyards that she truly came alive. Her fingers brushed against the waxy leaves of Merlot vines, their weight grounding her in a way she hadn't felt since childhood. Plump with potential, each grape mirrored her journey, raw, unrefined, but destined for greatness. Elena, her loyal housekeeper, turned surrogate mother, watched Giana's evolution with quiet pride. In their Mission District loft, over steaming mugs of chamomile tea, Elena would share stories of her own youth in Louisiana, tales of resilience that echoed Giana's struggle. "You're planting seeds, child," Elena said one evening, soothing. "Not just in that vineyard, but in your soul. Don't let the past choke your roots." Giana nodded, her eyes tracing the city lights beyond the window, each one a star guiding her toward her destiny. Roxanne, ever the gentle optimist, joined them, her hands busy arranging wildflowers in a vase. "You're building something beautiful, Giana," she said, her smile warm as a summer breeze. "WineVerse isn't just a business, it's your heart poured into every bottle." Their words were a balm, healing the scars left by Wilma's rejection. Fred, the driver, who had become her confidant, added his own wisdom, dropping by with blueprints for a tasting room he envisioned for WineVerse. "You're gonna show 'em, kid," he said, his eyes crinkling with faith. Diego's presence, though distant, was a constant thread in Giana's tapestry. His emails arrived like clockwork, each blending encouragement and mystery. "You're rewriting your story, Giana," he wrote in one sent from a penthouse in New York. "Every vine you plant is a testament to your strength." Attached was a financial statement, a staggering sum transferred to WineVerse's account, no strings attached. Giana's breath caught at the generosity and the questions it raised. Why was Diego investing so much in her? Was he truly the boy from her past? The one who called her Taba in that faded letter? Her suspicions deepened when she uncovered a hidden truth about her family's business in Los Angeles. Late one night, poring over financial records sent by a disgruntled former employee, Giana discovered that Wilma had been siphoning funds from a trust her father Peter had established for her. The betrayal was a knife to her heart, but it sharpened her resolve. WineVerse would not only compete with her family's empire, it would surpass it, a beacon of her triumph over their greed. Giana began recruiting allies, reaching out to former staff who had suffered under Wilma's tyranny. At a clandestine meeting in a Napa Valley cafe, she met Maria, a brilliant winemaker fired for questioning Naya's reckless decisions. "They treated us like dirt," Maria said, her voice trembling with suppressed anger. "But you, Giana, you value us." Giana offered her a position as head winemaker, her eyes fierce with promise. "This is our vineyard now," she said. "We'll make wine that tells our story." As WineVerse took shape, Giana's confidence grew, but so did the weight of her plans. She wasn't just building a business, but forging a weapon that would strike at the heart of her family's legacy. Yet amidst the flurry of activity, Diego's emails remained her anchor. One night, as fog curled around the Golden Gate Bridge, she opened a message that skipped her heart. "I'm coming to San Francisco next month. Let's meet at your vineyard. I want to see the empire you're building." A photo of Diego accompanied the words, his blue eyes piercing through the screen, a vineyard stretching behind him. Her pulse quickened, not just from anticipation, but from a flicker of recognition. Those eyes. Had she seen them before in a Chicago schoolyard? The thought was interrupted by a knock at the door. Fred stood there holding a package wrapped in brown paper. "Found this in the old apartment," he said, his voice gruff but kind. Inside was a journal, its pages filled with Giana's childhood dreams, sketches of vineyards, poems about freedom. Tucked between the pages was another letter, its ink faded but legible. "Taba, one day we'll run away together. D." Giana's breath caught her fingers trembling as she traced the words. The memory was faint, like a song half forgotten, but it stirred a longing she couldn't name. She confided in Elena, who sat across from her knitting under the soft glow of a lamp. "This Diego," Elena said, her voice warm as a hearth. "He's not just a stranger, is he? He's a piece of your past, waiting to be reclaimed." Giana clutched the letter, her heart torn between hope and caution. "What if he's not who I think?" she whispered. Elena reached for her hand, and her touch was a steady anchor. "Then you'll find out, child. But don't let fear keep you from the truth." As spring bloomed in Napa, Giana threw herself into WineVerse, her days a blur of meetings and tastings. She designed labels, celebrating her heritage, bold, vibrant designs, inspired by African-American art, each bottle a story of resilience. The vineyard became her sanctuary, its soil a canvas for her dreams. Yet the shadow of her family loomed large. She learned that Wilma was planning a gala in Beverly Hills, a showcase for their wine empire. Giana saw her chance, not just to compete, but to confront the ghosts of her past. She prepared meticulously, choosing a gown of emerald silk that shimmered like the vines under moonlight. Elena adjusted the fabric, her eyes misty with pride. "You're not just going to that gala, Giana," she said. "You're going to claim your place." Roxanne added a locket to Giana's ensemble, a small silver heart containing a photo of her younger self, a reminder of the girl who had survived. Fred, ever practical, offered to drive her his old Cadillac, polished to a gleam. As the day of the gala approached, Giana felt a storm brewing within her, a mix of anticipation and dread. She wasn't just facing her family. She was facing the girl she used to be, the one who believed she was unworthy. Diego's latest email arrived, a single line that set her heart ablaze. "Shine, Giana. The world is watching." She didn't know if he would be there, but his words ignited her resolve. She would walk into that gala, not as a victim, but as a force, ready to rewrite her story under the glittering lights of Beverly Hills. The Beverly Hills Hotel glowed like a jewel against the velvet night, its pink facade a beacon of glamour and power. Inside, the grand ballroom pulsed with the elite of Los Angeles, their laughter mingling with the clink of crystal glasses and the soft strains of a string quartet. Giana Salvador stepped into this world, her emerald gown catching the light like a verdant flame, her dark skin radiant under the chandeliers. She was no longer the outcast of Bel Air, the girl banished under a rain-soaked sky. She was a queen, her presence commanding the room, her heart a furnace of resolve and quiet fury. The gala celebrated her family's wine empire, a glittering facade that hid their greed and betrayal. Giana's mother, Wilma, stood at the center of the crowd, her designer gown a mask of elegance, her smile practiced but brittle. Naya, her eldest daughter, flitted about, her laughter sharp as glass, while Mona, the youngest, posed for photos, her beauty a carefully curated illusion. They didn't see Giana at first, their eyes gliding over her as if she were a stranger. But Giana felt their presence like a storm on the horizon, and she was ready to meet it head-on. Her heart thrummed with a melody of anticipation, each beat a reminder of the empire she had built in Napa WineVerse, a testament to her resilience. The locket at her throat, a gift from Elena, held a photo of her younger self, a girl who had dreamed despite the pain. Giana touched it, drawing strength from the memory of that girl who had survived Wilma's cruelty and Naya's mockery. Tonight, she would show them who she had become. As she moved through the crowd, heads turned, whispers trailing in her wake. "Who is she?" they murmured, their eyes tracing the curve of her gown, the confidence in her stride. Giana felt the weight of their gazes, but it was a weight she carried with grace. She caught sight of Naya, her sister's eyes narrowing as recognition dawned. Giana Naya's voice was a hiss, her smile faltering. "What are you doing here? You don't belong in a place like this." Giana's lips curved into a smile, sharp and serene. "Oh, Naya," she said, her voice smooth as velvet. "The president of WineVerse invited me. Perhaps you've heard of it." The lie was deliberate, a spark to ignite their curiosity. Naya's face flushed, her composure cracking, and Giana felt satisfied. She turned away, her gaze sweeping the room until it landed on Wilma, who watched her with suspicion and disdain. Wilma approached, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "Giana," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Why would the president of WineVerse invite someone like you? You're out of your depth." Giana met her mother's eyes, her own unwavering. "Maybe you should ask him yourself, Mama," she replied, her voice cool but laced with defiance. She turned, leaving Wilma frozen, a crack forming in her carefully constructed facade. The evening unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance, each step bringing Giana closer to her reckoning. She mingled with industry titans, her knowledge of winemaking earning their respect. A prominent critic praised WineVerse's debut Merlot, unaware that Giana was its architect. She savored the irony, her heart swelling with pride. But the true crescendo came during the toast, when a waiter acting on Giana's subtle instruction spilled a glass of red wine across Naya's pristine white gown. Naya's shriek pierced the air, drawing every eye. "You clumsy fool!" She snapped, her face a mask of fury as the crimson stain spread. Giana stepped forward, her expression one of mock concern. "Oh, Naya, what a shame," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. "Perhaps it's a sign some stains are harder to hide than others." The crowd murmured, sensing the undercurrent of tension, and Naya's eyes blazed with humiliation. Giana's heart raced, not with fear, but with the thrill of control. She had orchestrated this moment, a small but deliberate strike against the sister who had mocked her for years. As Naya stormed off, Wilma's gaze followed Giana, her suspicion deepening. Giana met her mother's eyes, her smile enigmatic, a silent promise that this was only the beginning. Later, as she stood on a balcony overlooking the city, the night air cool against her skin, Giana felt a presence behind her. Fred, her loyal driver, approached, his eyes warm with pride. "You did well, kid," he said, his voice gruff but tender. "They didn't see you coming." Giana laughed softly, the sound mingling with the distant hum of Los Angeles. "They still don't," she replied, her fingers brushing the locket. "But they will." An email from Diego arrived as she returned to her hotel. Its words a beacon in the night. "You were magnificent tonight, Giana. I watched afar, but soon I'll stand beside you." Her breath caught, not just at his praise, but at the realization that he had been watching how. The mystery of Diego deepened his presence, a thread weaving through her triumph. She remembered the letter, the boy who called her Taba, and a flicker of hope stirred. Was he truly her ally, or was there more to his intentions? In San Francisco, Giana threw herself into WineVerse, her ambition fueled by the gala's success. She met with her team, and their stark contrast was her family's betrayal. The winemaker Maria shared a new blend. Its rich notes reflect Giana's vision. "This is your story in a bottle," Maria said, her eyes shining respectfully. Giana smiled, her heart swelling with purpose. WineVerse was more than a business. It was her rebellion, her redemption. But the shadow of her family lingered. A late-night call from a former employee revealed that Wilma was investigating WineVerse, desperate to uncover its owner. Giana's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with anticipation. She was ready for the next move, a plan already forming in her mind. She would strike at Naya's reputation, exposing her sister's hypocrisy. The thought was a spark igniting a fire that would burn brighter than ever. As she stood in her vineyard, the vines swaying in the breeze, Giana felt a power surge. She was no longer the girl who had fled Bel Air in the rain. She was a woman forged in pain, tempered by ambition, and guided by a promise she didn't fully understand. Diego's words echoed in her mind. Shine, Giana. And shine she would, until the world saw her for who she truly was. A force, a creator, a queen. The city of Los Angeles shimmered under a canopy of stars, its lights a glittering constellation that mirrored the fire in Giana Salvador's heart. She stood on the balcony of her temporary penthouse in West Hollywood, the night air cool against her skin, her crimson gown from the Beverly Hills Gala, now replaced by a sleek black dress that clung to her transformed figure. The memory of Naya's humiliation, the crimson wine staining her sister's pristine gown, lingered like a sweet melody, a prelude to the symphony of justice Giana was composing. She was no longer the outcast, the girl banished under a rain-soaked sky. She was a force her spirit forged in the crucible of betrayal, her resolve as unyielding as the city below. The gala had been her opening move, a calculated strike that had left Naya reeling and Wilma suspicious. But Giana's plan was far from complete. WineVerse, her vineyard empire in Napa Valley, was thriving, its bottles gracing the tables of elite restaurants from San Francisco to New York. Yet it was not enough to succeed. She wanted her family to feel the weight of their cruelty, to taste the bitterness they had forced upon her. The locket at her throat, containing a photo of her younger self, pulsed with the memory of that girl who had endured Wilma's venom and Naya's scorn. Tonight, Giana would wield her power with precision, her heart a delicate balance of vengeance and longing. Her phone buzzed a message from Diego Lorenzo, the enigmatic man whose emails had become her lifeline. "You were a vision at the gala," he wrote, his words glowing on the screen like embers in the dark. "But be careful, Giana. The game you're playing is dangerous. I'm here always." Her breath caught not just at his warning, but at the intimacy woven into his words. Who was Diego, this man who seemed to know her soul? The faded letter she had found, signed D, and addressed to Taba, haunted her thoughts. A boy from her Chicago childhood, a promise unkept until now. She wanted to ask to unravel the mystery, but fear held her back. What if his intentions were not as pure as his words? Elena's voice broke through her reverie, soft as a lullaby. "You're plotting again, aren't you, child?" The housekeeper stood in the doorway, her eyes wise with years of watching Giana grow. Giana turned a wry smile playing on her lips. "Is it that obvious?" "Yaya," she asked, using the affectionate nickname that had anchored her through the darkest days. Elena crossed the room, her hands clasping Giana's. "Your heart's a storm, Giana. Just make sure it doesn't sweep you away." Roxanne, ever the gentle optimist, joined them carrying a tray of chamomile tea. "You've already shown them you're not invisible," she said, her voice a soft breeze. "But what's next? You've got their attention now. What will you do with it?" Giana's gaze drifted to the city skyline, her mind racing. She had uncovered Wilma's financial deceit money, meant for her siphoned from her father Peter's trust. Naya's reckless behavior, flaunting her charm to secure business deals, was another weakness. Mona, the youngest, was oblivious. Her boutique on Rodeo Drive was a fragile empire built on vanity. Giana would exploit these flaws, not with brute force, but with the elegance of a chess master. Her first target was Naya, whose reputation as a model and socialite was as brittle as glass. Giana had learned through a discreet contact that Naya was entangled in a scandal, a secret affair with a married businessman captured in compromising photos. The opportunity was too perfect to ignore. She arranged for the images to be leaked at Naya's lavish birthday party in Hollywood, a glittering event attended by influencers and industry moguls. Giana, disguised in a sapphire gown, slipped into the venue, her presence unnoticed, amidst the chaos of flashing cameras and clinking glasses. As the party reached its peak, a digital screen flickered to life, displaying the incriminating photos. Naya's laughter dyed her face paling as the crowd gasped. The images showed her in a car, lips locked with the businessman, her carefully curated image shattering before their eyes. "Giana!" Naya's voice was desperate as she spotted her sister in the crowd. "What have you done?" Giana stepped forward, her smile serene but sharp. "Happy birthday, Naya," she said, her voice a velvet blade. "Some truths are too heavy to hide." The crowd buzzed their whispers, a crescendo of shock and intrigue. Naya's career, built on superficial charm, crumbled in an instant. Giana felt a pang of guilt, a fleeting echo of the sisterly bond they had never shared, but the satisfaction of justice drowned it. She turned away, her heart pounding, only to find Fred waiting outside his Cadillac, idling under the neon glow. "You're playing with fire, kid," he said, his voice gruff but proud. Giana slid into the car, her eyes gleaming. "Let it burn," she replied. Back in San Francisco, Giana's focus shifted to Mona's boutique on Rodeo Drive. She had learned of Mona's negligence, poor management, disgruntled staff, and a reliance on her family's name to draw customers. Giana saw an opportunity to strike not with scandal, but with subtlety. She hired a team to infiltrate the boutique, posing as suppliers, who delivered clothing treated with a subtle but foul odor, undetectable until worn. The launch of Mona's new collection became a disaster, customers recoiling as the stench filled the air, their complaints flooding social media. Mona's distress was palpable, her boutique emptying as influencers fled. Giana watched from a distance, her heart mixed with triumph and sorrow. She remembered Mona's taunts and how she had joined Naya in mocking her white skin and existence. Yet as Mona's empire faltered, Giana felt a flicker of doubt. Was this justice, or was she becoming the monster she despised? The thought lingered a shadow on her victory. Diego's following email arrived as she returned to her Napa vineyard, its words a lifeline in her turmoil. "You're rewriting the rules, Giana," he wrote. "But don't lose yourself in the game. I'm coming to San Francisco. Let's talk." Attached was a photo of a sunset over the Hudson River, Diego's silhouette barely visible, his blue eyes catching the light. Giana's heart raced, the mystery of his identity tugging at her. Was he truly the boy from her past, the one who had promised to protect her? She confided in Elena, who sat knitting under the soft glow of a lamp. "This Diego." Elena said, her voice warm as a hearth. "He's more than a benefactor, isn't he? He's a piece of your heart waiting to be claimed." Giana clutched the faded letter, her fingers tracing the words. "Taba. I want to believe him." "Yeah," she whispered. "But what if he's playing me too?" Elena's eyes softened, her hand squeezing Giana's. "Trust your heart, child. It's stronger than you know." As Giana prepared for Diego's arrival, a cryptic message arrived from an unknown source. "They're watching you, Giana. Wilma knows more than you think." The warning sent a chill down her spine and steeled her resolve. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for the girl who had been cast out, who deserved to shine. With WineVerse's success growing and her family's empire crumbling, Giana stood on the cusp of her greatest triumph. Her heart, a delicate dance of vengeance and hope, guided by the promise of a man she was only beginning to understand. The fog curled around San Francisco like a lover's embrace, its silver tendrils weaving through the vineyards of Napa Valley, where Giana Salvador stood amidst her empire WineVerse. The grapes hung heavy on the vines, their deep hues a mirror of her resilience, a testament to the woman she had become. Her dark skin glowed under the morning sun, her eyes deep and soulful, reflecting a heart that had weathered storms but refused to break. The scars of her exile from Los Angeles, the sting of Naya's humiliation, and the chaos at Mona's boutique lingered, but they were no longer wounds. They were battle scars, each one a mark of her triumph. Giana's penthouse in the Mission District was a sanctuary, its walls adorned with vibrant murals that echoed her heritage. Yet beneath the warmth of her new life, a shadow loomed, the cryptic warning, "They're watching you, Giana. Wilma knows more than you think," had ignited a spark of unease. Was Wilma closing in, and was her greed and desperation driving her to uncover Giana's role as WineVerse's architect? The thought was a cold breeze, but only fueled Giana's determination. She would face her mother, not as the broken girl of Bel Air, but as a woman who had forged her destiny. Diego Lorenzo's imminent arrival added another layer to her tangled emotions. His emails, each one a beacon of support, had stirred memories of a boy from her Chicago childhood, the one who called her Taba and promised to protect her. The faded letter she kept close, its ink, a whisper of a forgotten vow, haunted her dreams. Was Diego that boy? Or was he a player in a game she didn't fully understand? The question lingered, a melody she couldn't quite place. But his words, "I'm coming to San Francisco. Let's talk," carried a promise that set her heart ablaze. Elena, her surrogate mother, watched Giana's restless pacing with a knowing gaze. "You're carrying the world, child," she said, her voice a soothing hymn, "but you don't have to carry it alone." Giana paused, her fingers brushing the locket at her throat. The photo of her younger self was a reminder of the girl who had dreamed despite the pain. "I don't know if I can trust him, Yaya," she confessed, her voice trembling with vulnerability. "What if he's just another lie?" Elena set down her knitting, her eyes warm as a summer dusk. "Trust is a leap, Giana, but sometimes it's the only way to find the truth. This Diego, he's seen you at your strongest. Let him see you at your softest too." Roxanne, arranging fresh roses in a vase, nodded in agreement. "He's given you a vineyard, Giana. That's not just money, it's faith. Maybe it's time you had a little faith in him." Their words were a gentle tide washing away her doubts. Giana prepared for Diego's arrival with meticulous care, choosing a dress of midnight blue that shimmered like the San Francisco Bay under moonlight. The vineyard would be their meeting place, its rows of vines a sacred ground where truths could be unearthed. As she walked through WineVerse, her fingers trailing along the leaves, she felt a surge of pride. This was her creation, a testament to her strength, and no one, not Wilma, Naya, Mona, could take it away. The day of Diego's arrival dawned bright, the fog parting like a curtain to reveal a sky of endless blue. Giana stood at the vineyard's entrance, her heart a drumbeat of anticipation. A sleek black car pulled up, and Diego stepped out, his presence a quiet storm. His blue eyes, sharp and soulful, met hers, and for a moment, time dissolved. He was tall, his features chiseled, yet softened by a familiar warmth. His white shirt clung to his frame, the sleeves rolled up to reveal a faint scar on his forearm. A scar Giana remembered from a boy who had shielded her from a bully's blow. "Giana," he said, his voice a low melody that stirred her soul. "You've built something extraordinary." She smiled, her guard softening, but not falling. You gave me the tools, Diego, but I'm still trying to understand why. He stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. Because I made a promise a long time ago to a girl who deserved better. I'm keeping it now. Her breath caught the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. You're him, she whispered, her voice trembling with realization. The boy from Chicago, Taba. Diego's smile was a sunrise, warm and revealing. I never forgot you, Giana. Even when life took me away. He reached for her hand, his touch a spark that ignited memories of shared lunches, whispered secrets, and a boy who saw her when no one else did. They walked through the vineyard, the vines whispering secrets of their own. Diego told her of his childhood of moving to New York after his family's business took them away, and of his guilt for leaving her behind. I found you again through Elena. He confessed, his voice thick with emotion. She worked for my family after yours. She told me what they did to you, and I swore I'd help you rise. Giana's eyes glistened, torn between gratitude and the weight of her past. Why now, Diego? She asked. Why me? He stopped, his hand cupping her cheek, his touch as gentle as a summer breeze. Because you're not just Taba. You're Giana Salvador, the woman who turned pain into power. I love that woman and want to stand by her side. The words were a revelation, a melody that drowned out the echoes of Wilma's cruelty. Giana leaned into his touch, her heart fragile, daring to hope. Their moment was interrupted by a call from Fred, his voice urgent. Giana, Wilma's at WineVerse's San Francisco office. She's demanding to see the president. She's desperate. Giana's pulse quickened, the shadow of her mother looming large. She turned to Diego, her eyes fierce. She's coming for me, isn't she? Diego's jaw tightened, his scar catching the light. Let her come. You're ready. The confrontation unfolded in WineVerse's sleek office, its glass walls reflecting the city's pulse. Wilma stood in the lobby, her elegance fraying under the weight of desperation. I need to speak to the president, she demanded, her voice sharp but trembling. Giana emerged, her presence commanding, her midnight dress contrasting with Wilma's pale suit. What do you want, Mama? She asked, her voice cool but laced with pain. Wilma's eyes widened, her composure cracking. Giana, you're involved with WineVerse. Her voice was a mix of disbelief and accusation. Giana stepped closer, her gaze unyielding. I'm more than involved. I'm building something you can't touch. Wilma's hand lashed out a slap that echoed through the room, but Giana didn't flinch. You're still a mistake, Wilma spat, her voice breaking. You'll ruin us all. Diego stepped forward, his presence a shield. Enough, he said, his voice a low growl. You don't get to hurt her anymore. Wilma's eyes darted between them, her desperation palpable. You don't understand, she pleaded. My company is failing. Naya and Mona are suffering because of her. Giana's heart wavered, a flicker of the girl who had once longed for her mother's love, but she stood firm. You made your choices, Mama. Now live with them. As Wilma stormed out, Giana felt a tear slip down her cheek, the weight of her pain and power colliding. Diego's hand found hers, his touch a silent vow. You did what you had to, he said, his eyes locking with hers. But this isn't over, is it? Giana shook her head, her resolve hardening. Not yet. They need to know who I am. That night, in the quiet of her penthouse, Giana stood at her window, the city lights a canvas of possibility. Diego's revelation had shifted something within her, a bridge between her past and present. She was no longer just fighting for justice. She was fighting for the life she deserved, one where love and strength intertwined. With Diego by her side and WineVerse as her crown, Giana was ready to face the next battle. Her heart, a delicate dance of vengeance and redemption, guided by a promise that had never faded. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly before the cliffs of Malibu, its waves whispering secrets to the moonlit shore. Giana Salvador stood on the terrace of a secluded villa, her silhouette framed against the silvered sea, her dark skin kissed by the soft glow of lanterns. The night air carried the scent of salt and jasmine, a delicate symphony that mirrored her heart's turmoil. She was no longer the broken girl cast out from Bel Air, nor merely the architect of WineVerse, her Napa Valley empire. She was a woman on the cusp of truth, her soul entwined with a man whose presence stirred memories of a long-forgotten promise. Diego Lorenzo stood beside her, his blue eyes reflecting the starlight. His presence, a quiet anchor in the storm of her emotions. His revelation in this vineyard, that he was the boy who called her Taba in their Chicago childhood, the one who had shielded her from cruelty, had unraveled her defenses. The scar on his forearm, a faint mark from a bully's blow he had taken for her, was a testament to a vow kept across years and miles. Yet questions lingered like shadows on the water. Why had he returned now? And what did his unwavering support mean for the battle she was waging against her family? The confrontation with Wilma in San Francisco's WineVerse office had left Giana raw. Her mother's slap, a stinging reminder of the pain she had endured. But Diego's protective stance, his voice a low growl as he defended her, had ignited a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Now, in this Malibu haven, a gift from Diego, its walls adorned with art that echoed her African-American heritage, Giana felt the weight of her past and the promise of her future colliding. "You're quiet tonight," Diego said, his voice a gentle melody that cut through the ocean's whispers. He leaned against the railing, his white shirt open at the collar, revealing a glimpse of the strength beneath. Giana turned to him, her midnight blue dress shimmering like the sea, her eyes searching his. "I'm trying to understand you," she admitted, her voice soft, but laced with vulnerability. "You've given me so much, a vineyard, a chance, a piece of my past. But why Diego? What do you want from me?" He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, a spark that sent her heart racing. "I want you to be free, Giana," he said, his eyes locking with hers. "Free from the pain they caused. You free to be the woman I always knew you were." His fingers traced the scar on his arm, a silent reminder of their shared history. "When I left Chicago, I was a boy powerless to keep my promise. But now I'm here, and I'll stand by you no matter what." Her breath caught the sincerity in his words, unraveling the last threads of her doubt. She remembered the boy who shared his lunch under a Chicago oak, his laughter a balm for her loneliness. Taba. She whispered the nickname, a bridge across time. Diego's smile was a sunrise, warm and radiant. "You were never too much, Giana. You were everything." He cupped her cheek, his touch a vow, and for a moment the world was just the two of them, the ocean, their witness. Their moment was interrupted by a call from Elena, her voice urgent. "Giana, Wilma's digging deeper. She's hired investigators to find WineVerse's owner. She's desperate, child." Giana's pulse quickened, the shadow of her mother's greed looming large. She glanced at Diego, his jaw tightening, his eyes fierce with resolve. "Let her try." "Giana," said her voice steady. "She'll find me when I'm ready." The days that followed were a whirlwind of strategy and emotion. Giana returned to Napa, her vineyard a sanctuary where she could plan her next move. WineVerse was thriving, its bottles celebrated in magazines and restaurants, but Giana's heart was set on a larger stage. She learned Wilma was hosting a charity auction in Los Angeles, desperate to salvage her crumbling empire. It was the perfect opportunity to strike again, not with scandal, but with a display of power that would leave her family reeling. Giana planned to outbid Wilma at the auction, securing a rare collection of vintage wines that her mother coveted. She worked with Maria, her head winemaker, to create a limited edition blend for the event. Its label is a vibrant tribute to her heritage, and its flavor is a bold declaration of her strength. "This is your legacy, Giana," Maria said, her eyes shining with pride as they bottled the wine. "Let them taste it and know who you are." Diego, now a constant presence, offered insights that sharpened her strategy. "You're not just buying wines," he said, his voice warm with admiration. "You're buying their attention, their respect." His support was a lifeline, but it also deepened the mystery of his intentions. At night, in the quiet of her Napa cottage, Giana pored over old photos, finding one of her and Diego as children. His arm around her, his smile a promise. The memory stirred a longing. She couldn't name a desire to trust him fully, to let him into the heart she had guarded for so long. The auction was a glittering affair at the Getty Center, its white marble halls filled with Los Angeles's elite. Giana arrived in a gown of gold, its fabric shimmering like sunlight on the vineyard, her presence commanding the room. Wilma, Naya, and Mona were there, their faces a mix of arrogance and unease. Giana bid fiercely, her voice steady, as she claimed the vintage collection, outmaneuvering Wilma's desperate offers. The crowd buzzed their whispers, a chorus of awe, and Giana felt a surge of triumph. She presented her limited edition blend, its bottles a silent challenge, and watched Wilma's composure crack her eyes, darting to Giana with a mix of fear and realization. After the auction, Naya approached her face, a mask of forced civility. "You think you're clever, don't you?" she hissed, her voice low but venomous. Giana smiled, her eyes sharp. "I'm just getting started, Naya. You taught me how to play this game." She turned away, her heart pounding, only to find Diego waiting his presence, a quiet strength. "You were magnificent," he said, his hand brushing hers, a spark that lingered long after they left the hall. Back in Malibu, as they walked along the shore, the waves crashing at their feet, Giana felt a shift within her. Diego's revelation had strengthened her and awakened a longing for love, connection, and a life beyond revenge. "I don't want to lose myself in this," she confessed, her voice trembling. Diego stopped, his eyes searching hers. "You won't," he promised. "I'll be here to remind you who you are." His words were a vow, a melody that soothed the storm in her heart, and as the moon rose over the ocean, Giana felt the first stirrings of a love that could heal her wounds. The vineyards of Napa Valley stretched like a tapestry of dreams, their vines heavy with the promise of harvest, their leaves whispering tales of resilience under a sky painted in hues of amber and rose. Giana Salvador stood at the heart of WineVerse, her empire, her dark skin radiant against the golden light, her eyes alight with a fire that had been kindled in pain and tempered in triumph. She was no longer the girl who fled Bel Air under a rain-soaked sky, nor the woman who had struck back at her family's cruelty. She was a force, her heart a delicate dance of vengeance and redemption, her soul entwined with a man who had kept a promise across decades. The auction in Los Angeles had been a victory, and Giana's outbidding of Wilma was a public declaration of her power. The limited edition blend she unveiled stunned the crowd. Its bold flavors were a testament to her vision, and its label was a vibrant celebration of her African-American heritage. But the triumph was bittersweet, shadowed by the cryptic warning that Wilma was closing in, her investigators sniffing at the edges of WineVerse's secrets. Giana felt the weight of her mother's desperation, a storm brewing on the horizon, but she was ready to face it, her resolve as unyielding as the Napa soil beneath her feet. Diego Lorenzo was her constant now, his presence a quiet strength that anchored her through the chaos. His revelation in the vineyard that he was the boy who had called her Taba in their Chicago childhood had woven their past into their present, a thread of love that shimmered through the pain. In Malibu, His touch had been a vow, his words a melody that promised a future beyond revenge. Yet, as Giana prepared for her most excellent reckoning, she felt a flicker of doubt. Could she trust this love? Or was it another illusion, like the family she had once believed in Elena? Her surrogate mother sensed the turmoil in Giana's heart. In their San Francisco loft as they sipped tea under the glow of a lantern, Elena's voice was a soothing hymn. "You're carrying a heavy load, child," she said, her eyes wise with years of love. "But don't let it dim your light. You're more than your pain." Giana clutched the locket at her throat, and the photo of her younger self reminded her of the girl who had dreamed despite the cruelty. "I'm scared, Yaya," she confessed, her voice trembling. "What if I go too far?" Roxanne, arranging a bouquet of wildflowers, joined them, her smile warm as a summer breeze. "You've built something beautiful, Giana," she said. "WineVerse is your heart poured into every bottle. Don't let revenge steal that from you." Their words were a gentle tide washing away her fears. Giana nodded, her resolve strengthening. She would face her family, not with hatred, but with the power of who she had become. The opportunity came at WineVerse's Grand Harvest Festival, a celebration of its first full season, held in the heart of Napa Valley. The event was a spectacle with lanterns strung between vines tables, laden with gourmet dishes and bottles of WineVerse's finest blends. Giana had planned every detail, from the jazz quartet playing soulful melodies to the vibrant artwork adorning the venue, each piece a nod to her heritage. The guest list was a who's who of the wine world, but Giana's eyes were fixed on three figures, Wilma, Naya, and Mona, who arrived with forced smiles, unaware of the storm awaiting them. As the festival peaked, Giana took the stage, her gown of ruby red flowing like the wine in her bottles, her presence commanding the crowd. "Welcome to WineVerse," she said, her voice clear and resonant. "A place where dreams are bottled and stories are told." The crowd applauded, but her family's faces were a study in shock, their eyes widening as they realized the truth. Giana continued, her words a velvet blade. "I am Giana Salvador, president and founder of WineVerse. This is my story, my triumph, and my truth." The revelation was a thunderclap, the crowd erupting in whispers as Wilma's composure shattered. Naya's face paled, her hands trembling, while Mona stood frozen, her eyes darting to her mother. Giana stepped off the stage, her gaze locking with Wilma's. "You thought you could bury me?" she said, her voice low but fierce. "But I rose, Mama, and I'm not alone." Diego appeared at her side, his hand on her waist, his blue eyes a silent vow of support. The final blow came with a video projected onto a screen above the vineyard. It revealed Wilma's financial deceit, years of siphoning funds from Peter's trust, meant for Giana to prop up her failing empire. The crowd gasped, investors murmuring as they turned away from Wilma. Giana faced her family, her heart mixed with triumph and sorrow. "Kneel," she said, her voice steady but soft. "Acknowledge what you did to me." Naya and Mona, their faces etched with shame, sank to their knees, their apologies choked with tears. "We're sorry, Giana," Naya whispered, her voice breaking. "We didn't know how much we hurt you." Mona nodded, her eyes downcast. "We were wrong. Please forgive us." Giana's heart wavered, the girl who had longed for family battling the woman who had learned to stand alone. She turned away, tears streaming down her cheeks. Diego's hand a steady anchor. After the festival, in the quiet of her Napa cottage, Giana stood at the window, the vineyard stretching before her like an absolute dream. Diego joined her, his presence a warmth that eased her pain. "You did it," he said, his voice soft as a caress. "You showed them who you are." Giana leaned into him, her tears falling freely. "But it hurts, Diego," she confessed. "I wanted justice, but I didn't expect this pain." He cupped her face, his eyes searching hers. "You're allowed to feel, Giana. You're allowed to hurt. But you're also allowed to heal." His words were a balm, a promise that she could find peace beyond the storm. As the moon rose over Napa, Giana felt a shift within her, a longing for a life where love, not revenge, defined her. With Diego by her side, WineVerse as her legacy, and the truth laid bare, she was ready to face the final chapter of her reckoning her heart, a delicate dance of strength and vulnerability, guided by a love that had never faltered. The Napa Valley dawn painted the sky in hues of rose and gold, its gentle light filtering through the vines of WineVerse, where Giana Salvador stood a solitary figure amidst her empire of dreams. Her dark skin shimmered under the morning sun, her eyes deep pools of resilience and quiet sorrow, reflecting the weight of her journey. The Harvest Festival had been her triumph when she unveiled herself as WineVerse's president, forcing her family to kneel before the truth of their betrayal. Yet victory had come at a cost, its bitter edge stirring a longing for peace within her heart. Giana was no longer the girl cast out from Bel Air, nor the avenger who struck at her family's pride. She was a woman seeking balance, her soul a delicate tapestry woven from pain, power, and the promise of love. Diego Lorenzo, her steadfast anchor, had stood by her through the storm, his blue eyes a beacon of unwavering faith. His revelation as her childhood protector, the boy who called her Taba under a Chicago oak, had bridged their past and present, igniting a love that softened the edges of her vengeance. The festival's aftermath had left Giana raw, her tears falling as Naya and Mona begged forgiveness, their apologies a fragile thread in the tapestry of her pain. Now, in the quiet of her vineyard, she felt the weight of their words, a whisper of the family she had once longed for. She sought solace in her San Francisco loft, a haven of vibrant murals and warm memories. Elena, her surrogate mother, sat knitting under the glow of a lantern, her eyes wise with years of love. "You've carried a heavy burden, child," she said, her voice a soothing melody that wrapped around Giana's heart. "But you don't have to carry it forever. Forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you." Giana clutched the locket at her throat, its silver heart holding a photo of her younger self, a girl who had dreamed despite the cruelty. "I don't know if I can." Yeah, she confessed, her voice trembling with vulnerability. "They broke me. How do I let that go?" Roxanne, arranging a bouquet of lavender, joined them, her smile a gentle breeze. "You're not letting go of the pain, Giana," she said. "You're letting it shape you into something stronger, something beautiful." Their words were a tide washing away the jagged edges of her anger. Giana's thoughts drifted to Diego, whose touch had been a vow, whose love had given her the courage to rise. She needed to see him to ground herself in the warmth of his presence before facing the next chapter of her story. That chapter arrived sooner than expected. Her loyal driver's call from Fred broke the morning's calm. "Giana, your mother's at the WineVerse office again," he said, his voice gruff but urgent. "She's asking for you, not the president, but you." Giana's heart quickened, a mix of dread and curiosity stirring. Wilma's desperation had been palpable at the festival, her empire crumbling under the weight of Giana's truth. What could she want now? The San Francisco office of WineVerse gleamed with glass and steel, a monument to Giana's vision. Wilma stood in the lobby, her elegance frayed, her eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion. Giana approached, her ruby-red dress flowing like the wine in her bottles, her presence commanding, yet softened by a flicker of hope. "Mama," she said, her voice steady but laced with pain. "What do you want?" Wilma's shoulders slumped, her voice breaking as she spoke. I was wrong, Giana. She said her words a fragile offering. I let my fear and shame poison our family. I hurt you, and I'm here to beg for a chance to make it right. Her eyes glistened with tears, a vulnerability Giana had never seen. I don't deserve it, but I want to be your mother again. Giana's heart wavered, the girl who had longed for Wilma's love, battling the woman who had learned to stand alone. She remembered the slap in this office, the years of insults, the betrayal of her father's trust. Yet she also saw the broken woman before her, a mother who had lost everything to her flaws. I can't forget what you did. Giana said, her voice soft but firm. But I'll think about it, Mama. That's all I can promise. Wilma nodded, her tears falling freely, and Giana felt a weight lift, not from forgiveness, but from speaking her truth. As Wilma left, Diego appeared, his presence a quiet strength. He had been watching from a distance, his blue eyes filled with pride. You gave her more than she deserved, he said, his hand finding hers, his touch a spark that warmed her soul. You're stronger than you know. Their conversation was interrupted by a letter delivered by Fred, its envelope worn but carefully sealed. It was from Peter, Giana's father, a man she hadn't seen in years. My dearest Giana, it read, I've watched you from afar, too afraid to face the pain I caused by leaving. Elena kept me informed, and I'm so proud of the woman you've become. I'm in Napa. Will you see me? Giana's breath caught her heart racing with longing and fear. Peter, the father who had left her a trust, a vineyard, a chance, could she trust him now? She drove to a quiet ranch in Napa, its fields stretching like a canvas of memories. Peter stood waiting, his hair grayed, but his eyes, her eyes alight with love. Giana, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I failed you, but I never stopped loving you. He told her of Wilma's threats and how she had kept him away, fearing his influence. I sent Elena to protect you, he said, his hands trembling. She was my eyes and heart when I couldn't be there. Giana's tears fell, her heart opening to the father she had lost. I needed you, Daddy, she whispered, her voice breaking. But I found my way. Peter pulled her into a hug, his embrace a home she had forgotten. You're my blessing, Giana, he said. And I'm here now if you'll have me. She nodded, her tears mingling with his, a bridge rebuilt across years of absence. That night in her Napa cottage, Giana sat with Diego, the vineyard, stretching beyond the window like a dream made real. I thought revenge would heal me, she confessed, her voice soft as moonlight. But it's this love family you that's making me whole. Diego's smile was a sunrise, his hand cupping her cheek. You're not just whole, Giana, he said. You're radiant. His kiss was a vow, a promise that their love would carry her through whatever lay ahead. As the stars bloomed over Napa, Giana felt a peace she hadn't known, a dawn breaking within her. She wasn't ready to forgive Wilma fully, but she was ready to heal, to embrace the love of Diego, Peter, and her chosen family, Elena, Roxanne, and Fred. WineVerse was her legacy, but this moment, this love, was her triumph. The sun dipped below the horizon in Santa Barbara, its golden light casting a warm glow over the cliffs where Giana Salvador stood, her dark skin radiant against the backdrop of the Pacific. The ocean sang a lullaby, its waves a gentle caress that mirrored the peace in her heart. WineVerse. Her Napa Valley empire had become a beacon of her resilience, its bottles gracing tables from coast to coast. But it was here in this seaside haven that Giana found her true victory, not in the fall of her enemies, but in the rise of her heart, woven with love, family, and a future she had dared to dream. Diego Lorenzo stood beside her, his blue eyes reflecting the twilight, his presence a steady anchor in the tide of her emotions. Their love, born in the echoes of a Chicago childhood, had grown through the storms of her revenge, a melody that softened the edges of her pain. Wilma's apology, Peter's return, and the humbled pleas of Naya and Mona had shifted something within Giana, a delicate balance between justice and forgiveness. She was no longer the girl who fled Bel Air, nor the avenger who brought her family to their knees. She was a woman whole and radiant, her soul a tapestry of strength and tenderness. Their Santa Barbara villa, a gift from Diego, was a sanctuary of light and love, its walls adorned with art that celebrated Giana's African-American heritage. Inside, their son, Daniel, gurgled happily in Elena's arms, his eyes blue like Diego's, soulful, like Giana's, sparkling with the promise of a life unburdened by pain. Elena, her surrogate mother, beamed as she rocked the boy, her voice a gentle hymn. "He's your legacy, child," she said, her eyes misty with pride. "A love that grows stronger than any vineyard." Roxanne, arranging a bouquet of roses, joined them, her smile warm as a summer breeze. "You've built more than WineVerse, Giana," she said. "You've built a home." Fred, polishing his Cadillac outside, called through the window, his voice gruff but tender. "Kid, you did well. Daniel's gonna grow up proud of his mama." Their words were a chorus, a reminder of the family Giana had chosen, those who had stood by her when blood had failed. Wilma's visits had become tentative, but regular, her presence softened by the joy of her grandson. Giana watched her mother cradle Daniel, her once sharp eyes now gentle. Her apologies no longer words, but actions. "I'm trying." "Giana," Wilma said one afternoon, her voice breaking, "I know I failed you, but I want to be better for him, for you." Giana nodded, her heart opening a fraction, not to erase the past, but to allow a new chapter. "Keep trying, Mama," she said, her voice soft but firm. "That's all I ask." Peter, her father, had become a constant in her life, and his ranch in Napa was a place of laughter and healing. They walked the vineyards together, his stories of her childhood, weaving a bridge across years of absence. "You got my eyes, Giana," he said, his voice thick with love. "But your strength, that's all you." She smiled, her heart swelling with the love she had longed for, as a girl now hers in abundance. Diego, her rock and love, was her new world's heart. Their days were filled with quiet moments, walks along the Santa Barbara shore, dinners under the stars, Daniel's laughter echoing through the villa. One evening, as they stood on a private beach, the waves lapping at their feet, Diego pulled her close, his touch a vow. "I've loved you since we were kids," he said, his voice a melody that drowned out the ocean. "And I'll love you for every day to come." Giana's breath caught her heart racing with a joy she hadn't known was possible. "I was so afraid to trust you," she confessed, her eyes glistening. "But you've given me everything: a vineyard, a family, a home." Diego's smile was a sunrise, his kiss a promise that sealed their bond. "You gave me you, Giana," he said. "That's more than I ever dreamed." Their love bore fruit in more than their son. Giana discovered she was pregnant again, a secret she shared with Diego on a trip to Hawaii, a gift he had planned for her birthday. On a private island, its beaches kissed by turquoise waves, she showed him the ultrasound, her smile radiant. "We're growing, Diego," she said, her voice trembling with joy. "Our family, our love." He pulled her close, his laughter mingling with the sea, his eyes alight with wonder. "You're my miracle, Giana," he said, "you and our children." As years passed, WineVerse flourished its bottles, a symbol of Giana's triumph, its story, one of resilience and love. Naya had rebuilt her life abroad, finding peace in a quieter existence, while Mona's boutique gained modest success, her ambition tempered by humility. Wilma softened by time, and Daniel's laughter became a grandmother Giana could almost trust. But it was Giana's family, Diego Daniel, their unborn child, Elena, Roxanne, Fred, and Peter, that defined her world, a symphony of love that drowned out the echoes of her past. One evening, as the sun set over Santa Barbara, Giana stood with Diego Daniel in her arms, the ocean singing its eternal song. "I thought revenge would set me free," she said, her voice soft as moonlight. "But it was love, yours, theirs, mine, that did." Diego's hand found hers, his touch a vow that needed no words. They were a family, forged in pain, tempered in love, and bound by a future as endless as the sea. Dear readers, Giana's journey is more than a story. It's a testament to the power of resilience, love, and the courage to rise above pain. We invite you to share your stories of triumph and join us in celebrating the strength within us all. Visit our website, www.wineverselegacy.com, to connect with Giana's world, share your thoughts, and become part of a community that believes in second chances and the beauty of dreams reborn. Let's raise a glass to love, healing, and the stories that make us whole.